So this lecture may feel a little bit more unstructured than some you've had in the past, and there's a reason for it. One of the best ways, I think, to show you different web designs, what companies are doing well, where they have opportunities for improvement, is actually to look at a lot of different websites. So I spent some time grabbing screenshots. Don't worry, I'll post a PDF that includes all the screenshots, and that'll give you the opportunity to go back, mark them up, and make your own decisions on what works and doesn't work and where their opportunities for improvements are. Now, one thing I'm going to rely on pretty heavily during this lecture is the pop-ups that I do. You know, the little pop that you see with a little factoid. A lot of times as I'm going through, there may be something that I want to call out that may not necessarily warrant a full explanation. But it's also, I think, really helpful to have those pop-ups, especially when there's an element on the page I want to call your attention to. So the things that I want you to look for as we're going through would be, what is the call to action? What are we wanting the consumer to do as the next step in their journey? How do we have the menu set up? Is it the hamburger style menu? By the way, it's a little nickname for the Omni menu, or the 3 lines where if you click it, it would expand out the menu. Or are all of the navigation points in the top menu? Is there a bailout? A bailout is what we call how to get help or how to leave feedback, often through the little plus sign or the question mark on the side of the design. CRM, email sign up. Now here's a pet peeve of mine. CRM is often conflated with email in digital marketing. A lot of folks who work in that space say, I'm in CRM, when really their main task is email marketing. But what is their sign up process? How are they giving you the nudge, and what's the value proposition for that? What's the header and the navigation? Is there a top navigation? Is there a secondary menu? How does that open up? Is it easy to click through? How do they use hero images? A hero image is the large image on the main part of the page, and is there a carousel? Footers and links. The footers and links can't be neglected. So if you recall back to your Google search certification, there is a great emphasis and importance that Google puts on how you're using the data, how the site uses your browser information, the privacy policy. And the way that you can accomplish this is by having really clear links in the footer and then having quality information on those pages linked consistently from every part of your site. Landing page quality. So sometimes we link off to third-party partners. In the case of American Airlines, they might link off to Citibank for their credit card. And sometimes we have internal landing pages. What are the quality signals from that landing page? How simple is the navigation? Is it confusing? Can I do what I need to do? How clean is the page design? How much content is on the page? How clean are the images? Is there a consistent design between main site and white label partners? Remember, a white label partner is what I used to do, where we would have the banner of the company and it would look like you were working with the company, but you were actually on a third-party website. The style of the scroll. Is everything above the fold, or is there a scroll where the user has to continue on to get important information? Do images on the page change or enhance as you scroll? That's called parallax. Location of the fold is super important because depending on your screen resolution and how zoomed in you are, you may lose key information. White hat versus black hat search elements, which means, are you following the best practices? Are you playing nicely with Google? And then keywords and the metadata. So as we go through all this, I'm going to talk through different elements on each of these pages. We'll talk about the types of business that they are, what their goals likely are, and what they can do better. And then at the end, I'm going to teach you how to do what we call a website heuristic analysis. So basically what that means is how to mark up a web page to tell a client what works and what doesn't work. And it's a really quick way to visually communicate what your agency or you recommend that they update as a best practice or a way to optimize their experience. So let's dig in. Here's the Omni Hotels website. One of the reasons why I'm showing it to you is because it's got a pretty simple design. Here you see that there's the main area of the page, and as you start to get down below this, when you're scrolling, there are promotional callouts. Promotional callouts would need to lead to a landing page, which can be used in emails, in social media, for search, and focus needs to be on quality. Let's zoom in. So one of the most important elements is that they have their clear call to action, what they think you should do, or what most people come to the website to do, which is to search for a destination, to start the booking for a hotel. Now, let's look at the top navigation, or what we call the header. The header would include the menu. In this case, they have the Omni menu, which is the hamburger button that would open up all of their sub-navigation. They also have their logo. Now, best practice is no longer to put the word home, but if you click the logo, that should take you back to the main gateway page. They also have some deep drop-down links, destinations, and occasions. Those are most likely also in the menu, but for ease of navigation and to help people that may not know to look there, it's also in a separate place. Now, they have also put at a very top menu transactional things such as My Account and Check-in. So if you look at this website, it's very, very clear what they want you to do. Navigation is simple. It's got the best practices for the header. And one thing to notice is that there is a hero image, but it is not rotating. Depending on their web design, they definitely could have done this. So that's an example of a website that has clear call to action. A good website to visit is the Equinox Sports Clubs. So it's very clear that they want you to visit a club, learn about the member benefits, and visit a club. It really is to schedule an appointment and talk to a salesperson. That's going to open up a form to have a lead. Now, contextually, if they knew who you were, this would probably be a different message based on whether you were a member or it was a repeat visit and you had been looking previously. Now, notice at the top navigation, they have various things that are important, such as clubs, their locations, the classes, personal training, the shop, and all the other elements that are worthwhile. And then if you are already a member, you can log in or you can join right there. So very simple design, single hero image, very clear what the next step is. So I want to show you SoulCycle for a couple of reasons. First of all, they actually don't own SoulCycle.com. If you go to it, it's a BMX bike company. So that's always a hazard when you don't own that. Peloton, the home bike company, doesn't own Peloton.com. Holiday Inn didn't own Holiday Inn for a long time. So it's one of those things that companies still have to deal with. Now, I will tell you that this page is the sister company to Equinox, SoulCycle. A lot of people don't know that they own them. There are a couple of different things that they will invite you to do. One is book a bike. The other is ride Soul Cup. I also want to call out that it is contextualized the page for Miami. If I click in, you'll actually see that it will pull up the clubs that are nearby. So I've clicked through and you can see that there are 3 locations near me. The closest one is Brickell. Now, how did it know that? If you recall back to the platform marketing lecture, we use IP address or internet provider address to determine location. And they use this right up front. I want to mention one other thing that I really like on this page, and it's the New to Soul pop-up on the bottom. That makes it very clear because it feels like a different element of the page, what the call to action is there. So I think they did a really nice job. Some of the best and most intuitive web designs are actually coming from some of the direct-to-consumer companies, such as Freshly, Blue Apron, all the different meal kits. So, for example, if the website doesn't recognize you, here's what it shows. The call to action is to start entering your information with your email and zip code to get started. Throughout the rest of the page, they're trying to tell you about their offerings and nudge you that if you need help to start a chat. Now here's the recognized state. This is actually my meal order for November 7th and November 14th. So it recognizes that I'm already a customer, gives me contextual information, and it also does an upsell, add-on snacks new to the menu. So navigation is very simple. The other thing I want to call out is that there are no navigational menus. Everything is in the top navigation. So it's very simple and directed as to what the company thinks you should do next in your consumer journey. This is one of Freshly's competition, the meal kit Green Chef. They're even more simple. Instead of having to give zip code information, it's just get started. But they make it very clear what the steps are. So again, very simple navigation, very clear options, and really narrowed choices of what the consumer can do. Blue Apron is very similar, however, they do a pop-up which grays out the rest of the page and has a scarcity message. So they offer a promotion, $50 off, that's only good for 30 minutes. Now, let's be honest, we know it's going to be good for more than that. But to close that, you either have to get the 50% or reject it. So a lot of times you'll see with these pop-ups that brands will try to use a little bit of psychology and persuasion to help you take that next action. Obviously, it doesn't always work, but it's a good way to drive home the message that, hey, this is a short-term offer that we're giving you now. So I want to show you another very simple site, but it actually has some issues. It's very clear what they want you to do, which is to make a reservation, but depending on your browser's resolution or what type of device you're looking at, the call to action or the search box could be below the fold, which is a problem. The other thing is that the image, which shows up dynamically, actually washes out the menu, which reduces the usability. So simplicity is not always the best. Sometimes it can actually work against you. There are times when you do business with a company when it's not actually the main brand. For instance, you may work with a travel site and it could be a third-party call center that's doing a revenue share with the company that you think you're working with. And in some cases, there's a licensing agreement where the name is licensed to a third-party company. Now, your hope is that when a customer leaves the main portion of your website and goes to that partner that's using the same brand, it'll be a very seamless journey and there won't be any signals that they're really leaving your company's experience. Sticking with Ritz-Carlton, you can see here that if you click on their yachts, their brand new yacht collection program, they actually alert you that you're leaving Ritz-Carlton and going to a third-party partner. Now, they're very cautious on who they license their name to, who they associate with, so I think that instills trust, but from a user standpoint, this puts up a barrier from having a seamless customer journey. Now let's look at what happens when you go to the actual site. Once you're at the actual site, it's actually a more functional layout because it's a little bit more useful. It's got a good hero image. It's very clear what the call to action is, search. Navigation feels very similar, and then it's got callouts along the bottom leading to key messages. But we've planted the seed into the consumer's mind that this really isn't Ritz-Carlton. So I want to look at one more example similar to this where a very small peripheral cue actually alerts the consumer that that you're no longer on the same website. When I first started this lecture, we talked about how when I first started the discussion of web design, I talked about how the header was a consistent element that should remain the same throughout the site. Now take a look at the American Express website. It's changed a lot since I worked there. You'll notice that it's a very light blue and it's a flat design. So there's not any shading, there's not any colors to it, there's no textures. You'll also notice that the entire header is white and you can choose the individual products that you want to search for in their Omni search. That's what American Express called this combined search. So when you click a product category like cars or cruise, the search will automatically update to whatever product you're searching for. Now, when you click over, if you notice, now the header is not the same. It's an older header that has gray and shading. It's not the flat with the white. It's got a darker colored blue. And if you notice, We went from americanexpress.com/travel. Now we're on a URL that says americanexpresscruise.com/whatever the URL is. And so if they had this header in the CSS and look and feel, very consistent, then the consumer might not know. The only clue would have been that they had gone to another URL. Now, unlike Ritz-Carlton, American Express doesn't message that. But for a consistent consumer experience, they would want to update the look and feel to match the original site. So these are very subtle peripheral cues that are important that give the consumer an alert that, hey, you may not necessarily be on the real site. So I want to go back to Ritz-Carlton for a moment, and this is actually their parent company, Marriott. Now, they do a very similar layout as Ritz-Carlton. However, their hero image is much more compact, so they have the search bar, which is the real call to action above the fold. But because they've relaunched their loyalty program, Marriott Bonvoy, which has been absolutely disastrous, they have left space so that you can either sign up or sign in, and it has their value propositions around it: best rate guarantee, free Wi-Fi, mobile check-in, free nights. So I think that while Ritz-Carlton does a nice job of the rich imagery, I think they lose some functionality and some of the practicality of having a smaller hero image. And for Marriott Bonvoy, this makes a lot of sense for them. Sticking with the travel theme, let's look at American Airlines. Now, it's very clear why people go to them. They go to book a flight, check in for their flight, check their status. They may need to go and do some partner booking. So if they want to earn points for hotels, vacations, or car rentals, they can do that there. They may also be interested in signing up for the credit card. And so the hero image may have things such as American Airlines Vacations. It may have the credit card. In fact, it does, the image before this was. But if you see right there, there is a hero image under above the booker, and that's fly nonstop to Morocco. So I want to show you this as a good example of a hero image leading to a landing page. Now, a lot of times a landing page may be about a single product. For example, if you're shopping from West Elm and you're looking at a sofa that's new to their collection, their landing page might only be about that product. However, American Airlines is launching new trips to Casablanca. Well, they're not going to have just one version of that. They're going to have several different gateways. There's going to be different prices for it. So their landing page consists of a search widget or the booker. They'll have some rotating book now promotions with some lead prices. They'll have an image, and then they'll have different prices, dates, and fare searches. So their landing page is dynamically populated, pulling in information from their database. Now, if you've ever had a situation where you're on a travel website and you click the price button, typically you would see an interstitial, which might be a little animation or the notice that the system is thinking, and then the price goes up. Now, why is that? Now, that's because when you have a page that's pulling in dynamic pricing, if they actually hit their database every time somebody did a web search or a reservation search from their call center, it would actually bring their system to its knees. So what they do for the website is they pull in something called cache data, CACHE, like cache, hidden. And so overnight, they pull a snapshot of the pricing that is used for searches. It actually speeds up the search. So rather than actually having to go into the database and pull back real pricing, they will bring the snapshot. So a lot of times when you're moving deeper into the booking, you'll see that it takes a little longer. Once you've made some very specific choices in your booking, they're actually hitting the database, and that's why you may actually see the price go up. So on a page like this, a landing page, you could actually see the price be a little bit different, and that's the reason why. Now, as you start looking at different pages like we're doing now, I recommend that you use Chrome or Firefox, and the reason why is it's very easy to view the page source. Here you can see that I've opened up the website and I'm actually looking at the metadata, which is up front. That's where you establish what the page title is, what the keywords are that are relevant to the page, and that helps Google and the other search engines know what your page is basically supposed to be about. You'd be surprised at how many do this very poorly. So I always think it's interesting to see what's on there. The other thing that I typically look for is to see what types of pixels or plugins are on there, or if there's any weird like spaghetti code, things that seems like that might be homegrown. So I think it's always interesting to crack that open and see what's going on. Now remember, one of the things that Google said in the search certification is that it's really important that they understand how the consumer's using their data. Google says it's really important how the site is using the consumer's data, their privacy policy, how the browser interacts with the site. And these are all things that should be done globally on the site and nested in the footer. So you wouldn't have to do that every time you have a landing page, but you want to make very clear to Google that this is addressed with these links, and make sure that those pages are high quality and very clearly linked. So those are some key points on a landing page. And so this is an example of a dynamic landing page that's pulling in pricing and inventory. Returning to the American Airlines homepage, I wanted to call out something that I think is really important that we often see, but very few people take advantage of. If you see on the right-hand side, there's the little tab that says feedback. If you click it, sometimes it will pull out and display a menu on top. In less optimal cases, it may actually launch a pop-up second browser window. But either way, what it's trying to do is if the user has feedback that they think that the web team needs to have, that's what that is for. We used it at American Express, and it was from a company called Opinion Lab. Now, 9 times out of 10, when somebody's leaving feedback there, it's not because they love your website or they were able to do what they want. So let's take a look at a couple of these pop-ups, and I'll show you some of the elements and the question that's always on there. So if you've ever seen one of those pop-ups that says, will you help us improve our page? Yes or no? 9 times out of 10, you say no. So when the airline has a chance to get your feedback, they're likely going to ask you more questions. I like what American Airlines did here because they do from 1 to 5, overall page rating, ease of use, design attractiveness, information and content. My goal on this page was related to, did you accomplish your goal? If you notice on the right-hand side with United, they're looking for an overall satisfaction. They're asking for a free-form text field, and then at the end of the mini survey, they ask, were you able to complete your intended task? So one of the things that's really important in a digital standpoint, particularly if there's an e-commerce element, is usability and being able to achieve the user's goal. If the site visitor isn't able to do what they intended to do, then we failed. And getting that seamless customer journey is so much harder than it sounds. And even though this doesn't have great uptake or great usage, it is one way for us to get that feedback and perhaps intercept problems. Now, you may hear this called a bailout, and here's where that comes from. If you are in a sinking ship and you're using buckets to get the water out, you bail the water out. So we call this a bailout when you are just saying, hey, this doesn't work well. Now, this is different than when you have a chat bot or a customer service click to chat. This is just another way that we can get some feedback. Now, one other company that often shows up is Medallia. Medallia is another survey company similar to Qualtrics. So you'll see Qualtrics, Opinion Lab, and Medallia pretty often providing these services to companies.